The air is trembling, the ground is quiet, and something holy is moving beneath the surface while the world rushes without noticing. There is a shift happening now, and only a few feel it brushing the edges of the soul, como a sombra de uma revelação que ainda não mostrou o rosto. Something is happening now that most will only understand when it is already too late. There is an invisible line being drawn through hearts, homes, churches, and nations. It does not make noise. It does not announce itself. It works like the slow closing of a door that many assume will remain open forever. You can sense it in the restlessness that does not go away, in the sudden clarity that visits in quiet moments, in the strange weight that pushes people to reevaluate what truly matters. The earth is not the same. The spiritual atmosphere has changed, and those who listen with the inner ear already know. Heaven is preparing a separation. This phenomenon is subtle, but its fingerprints are everywhere. Hearts once burning now flicker without reason. Others, before cold, begin to pulse again with a hunger they had forgotten. Some feel drawn to solitude, pulled away from noise, craving a depth they cannot explain. Others drift toward a comfortable fog where distraction feels safer than awakening. This is the invisible movement, gentle like dawn, fierce like judgment. A light that exposes, a shadow that divides, a whisper that reaches the depths no human hand can touch. It unfolds in churches where voices still sing, but the oil in many lamps has thinned. It unfolds in nations where noise tries to drown the quiet footsteps of God. It unfolds in individuals who feel a strange trembling inside, as if a hand from eternity were knocking at the door of their conscience. This is not imagination. This is not coincidence. It is the unveiling of a spiritual law long spoken. Before the great reveal, there is always a hidden separation. Before the visible sign, there is always an invisible sift. There is a prophetic detail, a sentence once spoken by Jesus, simple in form, yet thunderous in meaning. He warned that a moment would come when two would walk side by side, but only one would be ready. Two would appear identical, but their hearts would stand in different worlds. This was not poetry. It was a map of the final hour. Jesus described an invisible work that would precede the visible sign, a separation that begins not with earthquakes or trumpets, but inside the soul, quiet, surgical, unmistakable, and it has already begun. This phenomenon is not anger from heaven, it is mercy. It is a last call disguised as divine silence. It is a tender alarm ringing inside those who still have ears. The Spirit is awakening some, stirring them, confronting them, while others fall asleep under the lullaby of comfort and routine. The same wind that revives one heart exposes the hollowness of another. The same light that heals becomes unbearable to those who resist it. This is the hidden movement shaping destinies while the world scrolls without looking up. You feel it, even if you cannot name it. A gentle urgency, a quiet ache. A sense that the world is shifting spiritually faster than anyone expected. You feel as if something is closing, something is opening, something is being sorted by hands you cannot see. And that is exactly what is happening. This is not coincidence. It is prophecy unfolding in silence. And the silence is about to break. The quiet separation described before is not an illusion. It is the breath you feel before a storm that has not yet touched the ground. The trembling of the soul before a revelation it cannot ignore. The heart knows something is shifting even when the mind tries to rationalize it. The invisible line that Jesus spoke about is tightening, pulling some closer to the light and letting others drift into the soft darkness of self-assurance. This moment is the echo of his warning, the fulfillment of a sentence that has been waiting for its hour. Jesus once spoke with a tone that carried both tenderness and fire. He warned that many would assume they were ready simply because they stood near holy things, repeated holy words, and walked among holy people. But he said that readiness is not proximity. Readiness is surrender. He described a house where lamps appear equal until the night reveals the truth. He spoke of servants who thought they had time until the door closed without sound. He told of people who honored him with their lips while their hearts drifted far into the wilderness of self-comfort. His voice was not condemning but pleading. He was painting the danger of a spiritual sleep that feels peaceful but leads to loss. And now those words hover over this generation like a prophetic mist. Churches are filled, yet many hearts inside are empty. People know the language of faith, but not the weight of intimacy. There is a false comfort spreading like a warm blanket, convincing many that everything is fine, because nothing external is shaking. But Jesus warned that the most dangerous hour is the quiet one, the hour when the world feels normal, when life continues with routine, when the signs are happening inside more than outside. He said that a dividing line would appear without thunder, without spectacle, and he urged his followers to watch the inner flame more carefully than the outer world. This is the warning unfolding now. Some feel a sudden longing to return to prayer, a pull to purity, a yearning to turn away from noise and rediscover the voice that once guided them. Others feel the opposite, a strange heaviness, a spiritual numbness disguised as peace, a drifting that goes unnoticed because it looks like stability. Jesus spoke of this contrast. He said that in the final moments, hearts would reveal their true allegiance not by words, but by hunger, not by posture, but by desire, not by appearance, but by the oil burning within. His teachings were not abstract. They were stories that mirror our moment, a group waiting for a bridegroom, some prepared and some careless. A household where one servant remains awake while another begins to act as if the master delayed. A city warned to run, yet one heart turns back because something in the past felt safer than the call to move forward. These images are not distant tales. They are the spiritual landscape of this hour. Jesus warned that many would confuse activity with devotion, noise with presence, routine with relationship. He said that some would think they were ready simply because they were near the right people or inside the right place. But his warning was simple. What matters is not where you stand, but who you have become. And that transformation begins quietly, invisibly, in the places no one sees. This invisible phenomenon is the very moment he described. The sorting has begun. The wakeful and the sleeping now walk side by side, indistinguishable on the outside, worlds apart on the inside. And this is the tension that hums beneath the surface of the age. The words of Jesus are not coming. They are here. The fulfillment is not ahead. It is unfolding. This is the alert. The invisible hour that separates the sincere from the distracted, the humble from the self-assured, the watchful from the comfortable. And it is happening now. The invisible warning Jesus spoke of is more than a signal. It is a refining fire. And when this fire begins to move, nothing in the heart remains untouched. Many wonder why they feel stripped, why familiar things no longer satisfy, why relationships shift without explanation, why certain doors close even when they prayed for them to stay open. But heaven is not rejecting them. Heaven is refining them. The divine hand removes what the soul cannot carry into the next season. There are moments when the Spirit leads a person into solitude, not as punishment, but as preparation. It feels like isolation, but it is invitation. It feels like loss, but it is alignment. It feels like everything familiar is fading, yet what is truly happening is a purifying wind sweeping away the dust that once hid the gold beneath. The heart that cries out in confusion often does not see that it is being shaped for something holy, something weighty, something eternal. Refinement is not the comfort of the familiar. It is the courage of the called. Just as the ancient builder was instructed to separate clean from unclean, useful from useless, God now separates the essential from the temporary inside those he loves. There is a stripping that feels painful only because the heart tries to cling to what can no longer sustain it. The divine test is not set to break the faithful, but to awaken them. A storm shakes a tree not to destroy it, but to reveal which roots are real. A flame consumes the straw not to punish, but to expose the pure metal hidden inside the ore. A deep silence settles not to suffocate, but to help the soul finally hear what the noise never allowed. This pattern is written through the stories the faithful know well. A man building an ark long before the storm, mocked yet obedient, separated yet protected. A family warned to flee a city before dawn, urged not to look back because the familiar past can become a chain. A young shepherd anointed in obscurity, shaped in hidden valleys before stepping into his destiny. Every one of these moments carried the same message. Before elevation comes refinement. Before revelation comes testing. Before deliverance comes separation. So if you feel the wind shaking you, do not fear. If you feel the fire consuming what once defined you, do not panic. If you feel the silence pressing on your soul, do not assume God has abandoned you. Many of the most faithful are walking through this hour of purification. They feel misunderstood. They feel alone. They feel drained of old passions, yet not fully awakened to the new ones. And this very tension is the confirmation that heaven is working deeply, lovingly, intentionally. Sometimes refinement removes people who once walked beside you. Sometimes it exposes motives you did not know were hiding in your own heart. Sometimes it takes away comforts you built your identity upon. Sometimes it sends you into seasons where you cannot rely on yesterday's strength, but this is not rejection. It is the careful work of a father who refuses to let his children carry dead weight into a glorious future. He strips so you can run. He empties so you can be filled. He tests so you can be trusted. There is a holy ache rising in many souls, a sense of being between worlds, no longer at home in old patterns, not yet fully anchored in the new ones. This ache is the mark of those being purified. Heaven is tightening the filter, the fire is burning the excess, the wind is separating the chaff from the grain, and the hearts that surrender to this process will emerge stronger, clearer, steadier, ready for what others will not be able to endure. If you feel isolated in this hour, it may not be abandonment, it may be calling. If you feel stripped, it may not be loss, it may be preparation. If you feel overwhelmed, it may not be weakness, it may be the stretching that precedes transformation. Heaven refines those it intends to use, and this refining is gathering momentum. Stand firm. Hold steady. Do not resist the holy work being done inside you. A greater moment is approaching, and those who embrace the refining will be ready when it arrives. The refining fire prepares the heart, but the final test is found in the subtlety of the enemy's strategies. Darkness rarely comes dressed in terror, it comes dressed in comfort. It approaches not with threats but with lullabies. It does not roar, it whispers. The greatest dangers in the final hour are not the obvious storms, but the gentle songs that persuade the soul to sleep. And many are falling not because they rejected truth, but because they traded vigilance for ease. The enemy knows that a weary heart does not fall through rebellion, but through distraction. He crafts distractions that appear harmless, even good. He offers a version of faith without surrender, a version of peace without purity, a version of hope without repentance. It sounds biblical. It feels comforting. It strokes the ego with words like, "You're fine, you've done enough." There is no need to go deeper, but this softness is a snare. This comfort is a chain, and this is the great lullaby that Jesus warned about. He once told a story about a group waiting through the night. All carried lamps, all expected the same event, all looked equally prepared. Yet half of them carried oil that could endure, while the others carried only enough to look ready. The enemy's greatest trick is to convince people that appearance is enough, that emotion is enough, that proximity is enough. But when the midnight moment arrives, the truth is revealed. Those who sleep in false comfort wake too late to find what they neglected. There is another image Jesus gave, powerful in its simplicity. A woman fleeing destruction, urged to abandon the world behind her, but her heart turned back for what she could not let go. She did not return with her feet, she returned with her affection. And that one backward glance cost her everything. This story is not ancient, it is now. Many are walking forward with their words, while their hearts remain chained to what God is trying to pull them away from. The enemy's aim is not to terrify them. His aim is to keep their hearts divided. Jesus spoke also of a community that believed itself rich, strong, and self-sufficient. A people convinced they needed nothing, yet blind to their poverty. This spiritual blindness is the enemy's masterpiece. It does not make people hate God. It makes them feel no need for Him. It convinces them that as long as they say the right things, nod at the right teachings, and maintain the right image, they are safe. But Jesus warned that complacency is the final sedative of the last days. This is the danger unfolding now. A generation surrounded by spiritual noise, but starving for spiritual substance. A people who mistake busyness for devotion. A church with beautiful form but fading fire. The enemy does not need to destroy them. He needs only to distract them. He needs only to keep them comfortable enough to never awaken, proud enough to never examine themselves, confident enough to never notice that their lamp is empty. This deception is gentle. It wraps itself in soothing words and spiritual cliches. It avoids confrontation and replaces conviction with encouragement that requires no change. It produces spectators instead of warriors, admirers instead of disciples, crowds instead of carriers of oil. The enemy's final strategy is not persecution, but sedation. And many are choosing sleep because sleep feels safe. But heaven is sounding an alarm. The Spirit is shaking those who still have ears, awakening them from this pleasant fog. He is urging them to examine their hearts, to notice what they have allowed to dull their hunger, to expose the small compromises that grew into comfortable chains. This hour demands clarity. It demands vigilance. It demands a willingness to confront what has been ignored. Search your heart. Look at what steals your silence. Look at what numbs your urgency. Look at what comforts you away from surrender. This is not a time to drift. This is not a time to lean on the illusion of readiness. The final traps are subtle, but their consequences are eternal. Wake up now. Wake up before the lullaby becomes your prison. Wake up while the voice of the bridegroom still calls your name through the night. If the invisible separation is unfolding, if the refining has begun, if the deception is tightening its grip, then the question becomes unavoidable. How should we live in this hour? The answer is not complex, yet it requires everything. It is not a list to memorize, but a flame to guard. A heart awakened cannot rely on yesterday's oil. It must cultivate a continuous flow, a living intimacy. And this begins in the quiet places where heaven meets the soul. A heart that stays burning returns often to prayer, not as obligation but as breath. It seeks the presence of God in silence, allowing the noise of the world to fall away like dust shaken from the feet of a traveler. It practices stillness until the inner voice becomes familiar again. It embraces moments of longing, moments of weakness, moments of surrender, because these become the doorway through which divine strength flows. Intimacy is not built in crowds, but in the hidden room where no applause exists. A heart that stays watchful learns the discipline of fasting, not as performance, but as alignment. It chooses to weaken the body to strengthen the spirit. It removes the excess that dulls sensitivity. It makes space for clarity. In a world constantly feeding distraction to the mind, fasting becomes the spiritual rebellion that says, I choose hunger for God above comfort. And through this hunger, the eyes of the soul regain their focus. A heart that stays pure walks in confession and repentance, not with shame, but with freedom. It recognizes that hidden burdens cannot be carried into the final hour. It names what needs to be released. It forgives what needs to be let go. It brings darkness into the light, knowing that exposed shadows lose their power. Repentance is not failure. It is renewal. It is the turning that keeps the heart awake when the world begs it to sleep. A heart that stays anchored seeks the word with intimacy, not for information, not for theology alone, but for encounter. The scriptures become a lamp again, speaking with life, shaping thoughts, softening motives, cleansing desires. It is in these quiet meditations that the Spirit breathes understanding, and the soul begins to discern the difference between the gentle whisper of truth and the soft lullaby of deception. Living in this hour requires more than knowledge. It requires flame, and heaven is calling many to rediscover the practices that keep the oil flowing. Yet these practices are not mechanical steps. They are lifelines, threads connecting the heart to the eternal. Consider the story of a young woman who felt that her faith was slipping through her fingers. She looked strong on the outside, but inside she was dry. One night, unable to sleep, she whispered a simple plea for God to awaken her again. In the silence, something shifted. She began rising before dawn, sitting in the dim light, letting her heart soften in prayer. Slowly, the numbness melted. The oil returned. Her flame rose again, not through emotion, but through consistency. Or think of a man who lived with quiet bitterness. He served others faithfully, but carried a heavy wound he never faced. The refining season exposed it. He resisted at first, but eventually knelt and spoke the truth he had buried. Healing flooded him like rain on dry ground. In releasing his pain, he discovered the nearness of God that had felt distant for years. There is also the story of a weary mother overwhelmed by life. She felt disconnected from God, drowning in responsibilities. But she learned to create small altars in her day, a whispered prayer while washing dishes, a moment of worship in her car, a single verse repeated until it became strength. Slowly, her inner world transformed. Her flame did not blaze suddenly. It grew steadily, becoming a beacon for her family. These examples show a single truth. Heaven is not looking for perfection, but for surrender. Not for brilliance, but for willingness. Not for impressive spirituality, but for consistent intimacy. The separation happening now is an act of mercy, not wrath. God is pulling his children closer, inviting them to a depth they never knew they needed. And so the call is simple. Stay awake. Tend the flame. Seek the oil that only intimacy provides. Let the refining shape you. Let the warning awaken you. Let the presence of God become the place where your soul rests and rises. This is the path of readiness. This is how to live in the invisible hour. In this silent hour of separation, refining and awakening, one truth rises above all others, like a steady flame that refuses to be extinguished. This is not punishment. This is mercy. Every stirring in the soul, every uncomfortable nudge, every quiet conviction, every whispered calling is mercy. The shaking is mercy. The hunger returning is mercy. The longing that interrupts the routine is mercy. Heaven is not pushing you away. Heaven is pulling you close. The time is short. The signs are clear. The bridegroom is near. These words should not bring fear but focus, not panic but purity, not dread but hope. For the one who calls you is the same one who comforts you. He does not expose your weakness to shame you. He exposes it to heal you. He does not reveal the cracks to condemn you. He reveals them so light can enter. He does not stir your soul to trouble you, but to prepare you. The time is short. The signs are clear. The bridegroom is near. Let these words settle in the deepest places of your heart. Repeat them until they become strength. Whisper them in your moments of doubt. Speak them when the world tries to drown out your urgency. Let them echo when you feel weary. Let them rise when you feel alone. The rhythm of heaven beats through these phrases, calling you to stay awake, stay pure, stay ready, stay awake, stay pure, stay ready. This is not an aggressive command, but a gentle invitation. A call from the one who knows how fragile the human heart can be and how easily it drifts when unattended. He invites you to the narrow path that looks small but leads to life. He invites you to carry oil when others carry excuses. He invites you to look forward when others look back. He invites you to trust him in the silence and follow him in the shaking. Stay awake, stay pure, stay ready. Let these words become your compass. Let them guard your steps. Let them steady your soul when the final lullabies of the age try to close your eyes. Let them anchor you as the world grows louder and more distracted. And let them remind you that readiness is not perfection, but devotion. Not brilliance, but surrender. Not noise, but nearness. This is the hour when heaven draws close to the humble, the hungry, the watchful. The hour when light visits those who still lift their eyes. The hour when mercy stretches out its hand one more time. And to every heart willing to listen, a final call rises like dawn, breaking through the longest night. The time is short. The signs are clear. The bridegroom is near. So lift your head, strengthen your spirit, tend your flame. Let hope settle upon you like a soft mantle. Let courage wake within you like morning light. You are not forgotten. You are not unnoticed. You are being prepared by hands far wiser and gentler than your own. Stay awake, stay pure, stay ready. For the one who promised is faithful, and his footsteps are already approaching.